Welcome back. This is another episode of Weekly Tesla Talk. We're missing one of our co-hosts today, but I'm here today with Kenny and Damien. We want to kick off this episode with a video from Mr. Musk.
We're going to kick off with mentioning what the temperature in this room is, like literally. Now 18.8 degrees, so Kenny is not wearing his coat again.
No. I am still, but it's
Mr.
branded.
Green,
Mr.
body
Green.
warmer.
He's the new finance guy, the finance bro.
Finance bro, definitely. I traded in my Patagonia for this one. So
Great, proud of you.
Thank you, Kenny. That was the appreciation I was waiting for. Thanks for the addition. And let's kick it off with this short clip.
What I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. Fuck them. What I care about is the reality of goodness, not the...
Beautiful.
Great all-time greatest videos of Elon, of course. This was, I think, when the platform X was under tremendous pressure. And
I think that the Disney, when Walt Disney decided to boycott them and pull back.
Yeah. Apple also pulled out.
Apple was a massive boycott. I think in total of like $2 billion a year or something in that realm. At least like 30-40% of the total revenue of X at that moment, which was a big blow. But I think it's fundamentally how Elon looks at the world. He really cares about actions that brings good in the world instead of sort of the perception of it. And so it doesn't always look very polished with Elon, right? So if you, for example, see the latest interview they had together with Trump, the press conference, he has his kid running around, he still had his hat on, probably just stumbled into the room, and normally people prepare themselves for this presentation and all that. We never see him doing that as well with shareholder calls, etc. He focused purely on results that we have. And you also wrote a post this week about sort of that whole perception versus reality thing on X. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, definitely. I was... you mean the post about Doge and Elon?
Yes.
I was sitting on the couch and I was scrolling X, as I usually do. And all of a sudden, like, stuff started to dawn and like puzzle pieces started to connect with each other. So I decided to write a proper big piece, actually. So it took me quite some time. Thanks to Grok and ChatGPT, I fine-tuned it. But the whole underlying idea behind this tweet was Elon posted that the Democrats from roughly 20-30 years ago do not fundamentally differ from each other with the liberals or the left, the wokes right now, the Democrats right now. The Democrats back then, and the Republicans now. And to me, that was the first time ever that I noticed something that I learned in high school as a theory, and right now I feel that we're experiencing this. So you have, if we go back in history, we have Karl Marx, of course, and Karl Marx was deeply influenced by Friedrich Wilhelm Hegel. Mm-hmm. And Hegel has a dialectic view of progress. So historical progress, some see it as cyclical, so same shit over again, but then different. But this is dialectical, and dialectical means you have antithesis, thesis, antithesis, and that becomes synthesis. And he has a very cool word for that, actually, and I'll try to put it on the screen as well. It's called aufheben, and aufheben in English means sublation, to sublate something. And that means that you're at the same time you're abolishing something, but you're not actually leaving it, but you're only making it better. And to me, it really feels that we're in this moment right now, that we have the thesis was the Democrat neoliberal political economy, actually. that has become ingrained in our worldviews. That's how we were brought up. That's capitalism is good, free market is good, and we need to get free markets everywhere. But we went a little bit too far with that, and then there was a big revolt in people, mainly in the scientific world. And when I started my political science study, that was in 2011. The only thing I heard was neoliberalism was at the beginning of everything, and that's bad, and that's how we've become. And then this whole movement started with all of a sudden racial hate, racial crimes were becoming a thing, Black Lives Matter, women with wage pay gaps, LGBTQ movement went like to the extreme. And now we're seeing a counter movement on the Republican side, but that's actually the thesis and antithesis. And that's why it's colliding and so hard right now, because we're looking up the boundaries of everybody's framework and how we perceive the world. So it's not weird that my family members or friends call me out for a crazy left, far-right guy. And also in the public sphere, that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are really far right, but actually it's common sense, basic stuff. So I was just tying some knots together, that I do acknowledge that neoliberalism went too far, but it also brought us a lot of good. So in terms of political economy, neoliberalism is a very good way of organizing and creating wealth and progress. But dismantling complete governments, privatization of formerly welfare functioning state mechanisms, it all went a little bit too far. So I do hope that we can cherish and maintain our socialist welfare state ideas that we are so proud of here in the West, and what made us like the proud liberal democracies that we are. But we need to go back to basics, cut the dumb spending and cut out the extremes and go back to normal. So that's why I decided to write that post.
And how does that tie in on the video we started with Elon?
Well, good question, because I was weaving a little bit. But Florian, what do you say about this weave?
When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice.
Thank you, Florian.
Florian is very clear today, right?
Yeah, he's not weaving.
Normally he's mumbling a little bit. And
no, but to
what
get...
does he has other things to say? Hit it again.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Tomorrow they will say, Donald Trump rants and raves at the press. I'm not ranting and raving. I'm just telling you.
I'm not ranting or raving. No, but to get back to your question, a lot of the people that are now being perceived as good are actually quite evil. And you have maybe a little bit more to elaborate on that, like who are the evil ones and why is it actually happening. But the friends around me who watch the news, they are truly convinced that everything they see is good and that Donald Trump is the pure evil. But I think it's completely the other way around.
Yeah, well, let's not even label those things to evil. Let's say we can go into that. But as I read in the mainstream, or what I get from the mainstream media, I don't look too much at it, to be honest.
Good.
But I think there's a whole misrepresentation of Doge and what Doge is going to mean for society as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have quite a few sort of warning signals for what will be going on in Europe over the next coming time. And I think that is not something we need to take lightly. So we will continue to address that in this podcast. But the way I look at Doge, and Elon is now turning around every institution in the US, right? So the perception of it is that we're trying to abandon all these kind of institutions. While at this moment, we're still in the phase of just auditing everything, right? So we're just trying to get the information.
Painting the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And cut already the most obvious spends that we see. So for example, and almost every day, the whole team of Doge is now expanding. They started first with 20 people, and now they have a team of 100 people. But those are the 100 smartest youngsters basically working on that task. And they leveraging AI heavily to accumulate information, because you're looking at databases of hundreds of millions of payments, et cetera, et cetera.
That's what Big Balls is doing right now.
I don't know who these guys are, but I think what we're now seeing is sort of the first phase, but it will become something like reimagining what it means to be a citizen, reimagining what it means to govern a country. Those questions, we all have been following Elon for more than 1,000 hours. He look at things from first principles, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what are the fundamental jobs and tasks from a government, and he builds that up from that point of view. But what the main reason, of course, is for Doge is two things are out of control. One is spending is out of control. So if we don't fix our spending at this moment, America and thus the West will go bankrupt. And unfortunately, seeing a bankrupt West is something that people in the West cherish, but that is, I think, what I call propaganda. Yeah.
How do you mean a bankrupt is what we cherish?
Well, if your worldview is that that in the West, let's say Europe and the US, right, we own our position by oppression of minority groups in the world, right? So we feel bad about slavery. We feel bad.
So we need to punish ourselves.
So and it's all being set up by men that are oppressing women and whatnot. And of course, we always need to look at giving everybody fair opportunity, right? Everybody would agree with that, and not be a racist to whatever group of people we are working with. That's right?
Common sense, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the West is now sort of, and America is freeing itself from it, but in Europe we do not see it.
Not yet.
But we see a lot of for example, it's not okay to say, well, I'm proud to be an Italian or proud to be a Dutch or a German. And that's also what Elon mentioned in the speech of the AFD in Germany.
With his...
Of course, World War II was a very negative event, but we cannot just live by the past. We need to look forward to the future, right?
Which he has a fair point, yeah.
Yeah, so we cannot stay sort of in the guilt loop for sort of the rest of our lives. And of course, if you extrapolate on that, after that I will go back to the Doge thing. If you extrapolate on that, and with that worldview going to make decisions, then of course you open all the borders, so you don't have strong policies on immigration, and you try to advance sort of groups that are not per se contributing to that West, because you have a sort of worldview that we have not earned this position. And that is a whole different position of, like, let's say, okay, let's improve all of ourselves so everybody can improve within that ecosystem that we have. But back to Doge. So I think, what is going on is it's going to be reimagined what it means to be a citizen of a country, and it's going to be reimagined what the role of a government will be. And Mike Pence, who have been following this sort of frauds and government spends over the last couple of years very closely, was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he had a very telling quote, and you're going to pull it up right now.
Yeah, I have two actually. So I need to download them as.
So it's
Is this one right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me close the other ones first.
So what he says is, no, in fact, I think we are at the tip of the iceberg. So
Sorry,
what we are
can
seeing...
you start that again?
Yeah, sure. So Mike Benz, and I think this is the most telling and also most food for thought for our podcast, but also for our listeners to think about what this all means. Because right now we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? So the Doge is not only doing audits for all the for all the institutions. They're looking at all the government spend, and so that's almost for the first time in our history as humans, maybe 500 years, that we can really have full accountancy and transparency, because the transparency will also be that we are going to release the JFK files, Martin Luther King files.
And that's actually what's really different this time, because like looking at the government expenses, they've done that a couple times before, but maybe not this extreme and this well thought out. But
so not only we're going to dig up all the, let's say, our sins of the past, as we can call it, or things that we have hid from the citizens in the past. But moving forward, we're going to be as transparent as possible with the decisions that we have. But first, we need to go to a period of sort of a pain, getting all that...
It's gonna hurt big time, and especially from the standing elite.
Yeah, so the quote of my Benz is, no, in fact, I think we're at the tip of the iceberg. So what we're seeing right now is just the tip of the iceberg of all the things that have been going on. And what the people are going to see on this is going to completely reorient their mental map of how they think the world works, how they think American power projects into the institution. So you can almost leave that final sentence of how they think American powers project into the institution out.
Yeah,
but to
this bit, like what people are going to see on this, is going to completely reorient their mental map. Is this what you tried to explain to me the other day with the Truman Show?
Yeah. So the analogy that Mike Benz uses in his work, is that basically we're in a sort of, our reality at this moment is not like a real reality. It's basically a sort of film studio that we are all in.
It's a desired reality,
or sort of a sort of fake reality where the world around us is being created by artificial money that is being put into artificial initiatives, artificial work, etc. So,
can you explain on that? Like this might be weird for some artificial money and artificial.
Yeah. So let's go back to the COVID period, for example, right? So at the COVID period, there was a sort of shutdown in the first weeks, and we all talked about the critical functions in society. So basically, only 20-25% of the people were doing the work.
Are actually necessary to keep society running.
Yeah, are necessary to keep society. And we don't know for how long that will be, right? Because maybe when it's over a longer period of time, certain things start to crack. But at least we had the period where we sort of scaled down all the work and said, okay, what is necessary to run our society as a whole? And that is, of course, a sort of very painful truth, because instead of questioning yourself, am I sort of necessary for society at this moment? It's almost like the answer is like, not sure about that.
Yeah, and a lot of people were complaining about their own bullshit jobs, right?
Yes. And also, for example, if you ask, there are research being done, like, what if you win the lottery? And then 80% feels like, I want to quit my job because it somehow does not contribute to what I'm seeing in society. So I don't say 80% is bullshit jobs. That's not what I'm saying. But if you, let's say, you pay you pay a big percentage of your money in taxes, so to say. So let's say in the Netherlands it's almost 50%, right? If you earn a decent income.
If you are above the 71,000,
Yeah, and what you want is that you pay for nurses, that you pay for teachers, that you pay for sort of infrastructure that you use in your daily life. But turns out that on top of that, our sort of bureaucratic head is growing and growing and growing, and that is becoming a sort of a monster that needs more and more cash, like every time. Like the only solution that we're seeing there is like raise taxes or print money. Both of them are sort of destructive for in the end what the citizens keep in the pocket, thus their freedoms, right? So if you have like a surplus of cash in your pocket, it gives you options in life. But if you always keep tight on a tight leash, right? So you always need to pay more and more to keep that system going. You're basically sort of citizen with the illusion of being free.
And is that
right?
maybe this?
So this is
what you're seeing
like maybe over more of a sort of a conversation starter. Like the biggest scam in life is paying taxes on money we make, paying taxes on money we spend, and taxes on what we own that we have already paid taxes on with already taxed money. Okay, and let's add to that, if you die, you cannot, there's an extra layer of taxation.
Inheritance tax.
Yeah. So I'm not saying at all that I'm against taxes or whatever, but we're so used to the concept of paying taxes that we actually, some people are questioning it.
Play nice, pay taxes, and live a happy life.
Yeah, so Elon, this was my brainwave over the last week. So Elon has been talking about universal basic income in the world of AI, right? In his recent interviews, he was not talking about basic income, but universal basic high income. So in his worldview, so let's say in the future, 5 years, 10 years from now, with the rollout of Grok, xAI, where we get into in this episode as well, and sort of the government getting out of our backs in terms of spend, people have way more money in their pocket for the things that they do, and that will automatically lead to a universal high income for everybody that contributes on sort of that whole system. But what I think people are misunderstanding about the effectiveness of Doge it's basically 5 pillars, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, but before we dive into that, because the universal basic income is something I've written about it, I think 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because then I saw a TED Talk by, I keep forgetting this guy's name, but he wrote multiple books, and he called like the sixth industrial revolution, and that's the age of automation. That a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, and now we're seeing that actually happening in front of our eyes with autonomy and Optimus and large language models. It is getting there. But the general idea against a basic income has always been, but people are inherently lazy and they need to play a role in society. How do you look at that?
So I come to that in pillar number 5 from how I think value is going to be created in a sort of post-Doge society, right? So we're now in the midst of...
No, so that's 4 years from now.
Yes, but there's one on interest rates. Ray Dalio and Tucker Carlson had an interview as well, so there's some interest point is that. So what we're seeing right now is layer number 1 of Doge. And what is that doing? That's cutting expenses. Where there's obvious waste, we are cutting expenses, right? So that is step number 1. In the meanwhile, so what will be the beneficiary of that? If you spend less money, what happens then normally? You keep more money in your pocket, right?
Your piggy bank grows. Yeah.
Okay. It turns out that we're actually spending more money than we're taxing people for. So that's
so we have
another
a
story.
deficit.
So we need to cut even more. But let's say normally when you cut, you keep money in your pocket. While that is happening, so there, let's say in the first, there's no waste. So we don't have things we pay for that are unnecessary or questionable if a taxpayer needs to do that. So step number 2 of that is that there will be less regulations. While auditing everything, they're also thinking about, okay, how can we do this more efficient? So we need less people to run this whole thing. So there will be a more efficient with less regulation government. So what will happen instead of all breaks, if you want to get something done, something nice, for example, in Europe with AI, the Cybertruck, all of that are not available in Europe yet because regulation takes too long, right? So now suddenly, instead of brakes, we have accelerators. That is the goal. So people are working towards the same outcome that citizens want to achieve. And of course, as said in other podcasts as well, we need regulation, but it needs to be sensible.
A little bit more libertarian and
sensible and just less complex. So if you have a tax code that consists of, let's say, 1,500 pages and you can bring it back to 30 pages, it becomes easy, more understandable. But if you think through that, like a lot of people are making money on that complexity. So their whole map of the world needs to reorient to a more sort of simple, simplified regulation. And lawyers, et cetera, cannot hide behind like pages and pages of that. So, and they're coming with very straightforward rules. So they say, okay, a proposal can only be 1 page. That's it. So your proposal needs to be on a 1-pager, so it's understandable for everybody. So point number 1, you're spending less money, so you keep more money in your pocket. You have less regulation. So first of all, it also saves you a lot of money because now the businesses need to do a lot in regulation and have lawyers.
And less regulation means also less policing that regulation, enforcing that regulation.
Exactly. But also wasting less money on that. That leads. Right now, the total debt of the United States is $33 billion, and the interest rates on that are just as high as the whole military budget. So it's $2 trillion already in interest rates. What the citizens in the US, and you can duplicate this to Europe as well. Kenny, you dived in the Netherlands what we're paying on interest rates as well. What we see there is these interest rates and these debt market.
The people can now see what the actual current national debt is.
36 billion. Thanks for pulling it up. And on this money, we're paying interest. So 106K for every single person in the US. So we're paying interest on that. But what that actually means is like the higher your debt is, let's say you want to have a loan with me of 100K. Yeah. And you don't have a job, you're drinking all day, etc. What do you think my interest rates on your loan will be? Probably very high, right? Because it's very uncertain if you can pay it back. Well, that happens on sort of large scale in the US. So big parts of the debt in the US is maturing, as they call it. So then it needs to be refinanced. And it probably will be refinanced against higher rates because of...
there's uncertainty that the US will pay back on their loans.
Yeah, exactly. So those bonds will be paid back. So it's you can have, for example, bonds on, let's say, I don't know what the bonds are exactly, but on Zimbabwe, for example, and have interest rates on 20% of that.
Love those bonds. Yeah, love them.
Yeah, so high risk, maybe they default and it's unsure if they can pay these type of bonds back. So what then happens is you're in a sort of negative cycle, as Ray Dalio also points out. And Ray Dalio was very sort of, he's always very neutral in his voicing, right? Because he has friends all over the world, in China, etc. So he's more or less a global citizen.
Yeah,
so
he cannot be too partisan.
No. So he was very sort of correct in his wording, but he says, well, within 3 years, the US is like a big problem because nobody wants to buy the debt anymore. No. Nobody wants to have those on their
Those
balance
bonds are
sheets.
worth nothing, actually.
Yeah. So what right now Elon is doing, and Trump, of course, Trump is a real estate guy, so he knows about these refinance things. He is sort of pitching to the people that are selling these bonds, like, listen, this is going to be the long-term effect of Doge. We're going to grow the economy by, number 2, less regulation. We're going to cut our spending. So basically you have a conversation with your bigger brother, right? Like, are you going to pay back the money, my friend?
Yeah.
Yes, but first I need to take some measures. So Elon and Donald are working on that as well to sort of refine.
And it's good that they're transparent on it, because otherwise the other side of it will say, but it's doing nothing what they're doing, and they're cutting, and it doesn't even solve something.
Yeah. So when it needs to, I think normal levels of debt are like 30% of your GDP or 20% of your GDP. So you have the earning capacity, as they call it, to if
how do we call that, solvability, Kenny?
Yeah.
Solvability. So that's one point on the interest rates. But who is paying for that? Of course, the citizens of the United States, right? So if there's
is that directly or indirectly? How are they paying for it?
Directly. It's just tax money that goes into interest payments. So clear as that.
The more debt, the more tax will be increased.
Yeah. So number 1, keep money in our pocket. Number 2, less regulation, so we accelerate progress. Number 3 is we're cutting our debt, so interest rates will also go down. So that becomes over time a huge factor. So number 4, pillar number 4 is output of human capital. So let's take a very extreme example. One of the things that came out of Doge was it was the system of the mine, right? So before going on pension.
The pension where the pension isn't digital, but they need to go into effing mine to.
Exactly. So 1,000 people were working in that mine to get this done, which is basically a sort of useless task.
In Dutch, we say werkverschaffing. It's just creating jobs that are unnecessary.
That
have easily been automated and digitized.
Have no purpose. Of course, when your mental model is that you have been working in that mine for all your year and you have been supervisor for all that year, then think about the quote of Mike Pence. Like, you really need to reorient your map of the world, right? You're coming home to your kids and say, look what daddy has been doing in this mine, and everybody's proud on their work, and now suddenly people come in and say, well, your job is sort of useless, and this is like an obvious useless thing, but sometimes it's a bit more not so black and white if it's something useful, the yes or no. So, but what Elon said is, well, if these 1,000 humans now will start, let's say, growing tomatoes in their garden and selling it on the local market, then their output is they're immensely more useful than something they're doing right now. So people always think that the bar needs to be very high, right? But it's actually not the case. If you just help with delivering a package, or if you grow tomatoes and you start selling them, this is already useful for your fellow citizens, which is actually a hard thing to do because we're not so much trained to be useful.
Yeah, and we made it unnecessary as a result of the industrialization wave before.
Yeah.
With capitalism and industrialization, division of labor, specialized labor, and comparative advantages between companies led to this. And now we're all so used to exchanging our labor for money, and that's our way of subsisting or existing. Yeah, that's all changing.
So, any thoughts on the interest rates part, or
No, just continue.
Continue. So yeah. So
Is this time for your nap right now?
I'm napping. It's going well.
So we have as point number 4, subtly freeing up these thousands and thousands of people. And the way Elon calls it is we put them in a more efficient operating system. So he compared East Germany and West Germany post World War together, right? And the East Germans were working in a very inefficient operating system, as you call it. So you have a certain way of where we agree upon working together, and the way of working in East Germany was not so efficient.
And then there's the socio-economic or ordering mechanism in the country.
Yeah, so the famous story of the Trabant cars, while East Germany was trying to produce Trabant cars, which was the worst quality cars possible, and they could not deliver them, while so many people were working on getting their car right.
Was Trabant the precursor to Lada?
I think
could be, but it's same stuff.
Yeah, and then we have the Volkswagen Beetle and BMW taking off in West Germany.
Yeah. So, but on the other side of the wall was like BMW thriving, Mercedes thriving. So, actually building the best cars in the world, especially at that moment in time.
Until 2010, that's a certainty.
Yeah. So what we see there is then just by having a more
a different OS
operating system.
Yeah, a different OS leads to way different outcomes.
Yeah. So let's say you're working on a computer that is super slow versus like the latest, Apple, and of course then you're more efficient when you do your work.
A slow laptop makes me want to kick a fat kid at Kmart, and a good functioning laptop makes me want to be productive.
So moving all those people to something in a better operating system is going to enhance
it's going to maximize human output. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a difficult undertaking to get everybody on that new operating system, but
it happened many times in history, of course, when countries got freed up, and especially when you're aware of it and you say, okay, we have training programs for the people, and you're mindful on that. So, for example, let's call another successful example, Bukele in El Salvador. Right? Mm-hmm. He cut down all the M13 gangs in the first months that he was there.
MS-13, the crazy gangs.
So, but what is not so reported? It's reported that El Salvador is right now the safest country in the world, right? So that they got rid of all the M13 people and put them in a sort of giant prison. And of course, and fairly so, human rights organizations had questions on that endeavor. Like, okay, what are you doing? You're basically everybody with a tattoo on their face you arrest, which is of course questionable. But then he said, like, listen, we have this whole program. So he told the human rights organization what their program was. So basically everybody that was arrested was being vetted in the prison on behavior,
just like they're doing with immigrants right now, like illegal immigrants right now. They're vetting each immigrant before deporting.
But what is very much misunderstood of that whole M13 gang and why it grew so big, because it was almost like 7, 8, almost 10% of the population was an M13 gang member. So that is very big part of civilization in El Salvador. Therefore, the society was not so safe.
Yeah, and organized crime is like a state is also kind of organized crime. Like a mafia keeps the people safe, and it gives them rules, gives them boundaries, and they have the monopoly of violence. So it's practically a state.
So what basically Bukele was saying, like, if you are a young person in this country, one of the only viable career paths is to become an M13 member, because that's the
gang member of MS-13, or
nothing else, basically, because it was so crazy that you got your wage from your normal work, and then you try to get back home, and then you got, you encountered the M13 gang member, and he stole your money. So what's the point of working at that point?
In the meanwhile, I'm looking up an MS-13 gang member, but continue.
But what they've been doing in those giant prisons is that they had massive reform programs. So all those young men, basically, because most of them were men in their, let's say, from age 15 to 35.
Here we have one on the screen. Let me make it a little bit bigger.
So let's say 10% of your society, as
and see, like what you were saying about the tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Human rights organizations are like, oh, you're going to put everyone with a tattoo in jail.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn obvious that he's a gang member if MS-13 is all over your body.
Yeah. So, but it was like the only career path that those people had.
Yeah.
And now what they do in prison, they have massive programs where they give these people that are in prison, say, listen, you behave well. So let's say you're not violent. Okay. That's stage number 1. So you're not stealing, you're not violent for a certain period of time. Now you get enrolled in training programs. And these training programs are all giant success cases. So people, they learn craft, so they learn how to build homes, they learn how to...
In jail or outside of jail?
In jail.
Okay.
In jail. And the purpose is that they got released very soon.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, with the economy of El Salvador is now suddenly thriving because it's safe, suddenly new people are coming in that are useful for...
So they're learning a skill, they're learning theory or something that they can put to use when returning to society.
When returning to society. Because the level, there will probably be a bunch of psychopaths in that M13 gangs, but that's a very small minority group of that whole gang, because the rest was just joining because it's the only gig in town, basically. Yeah. But same goes for, I don't want to compare, like, let's say, but I want to say, like, the way I want to compare it is, let's say, crime is the lowest level of productivity that we can have, right? It's basically the opposite of productivity, because you're stealing from the ones that are productive.
Unless you're Robin Hood.
Yeah, or you're selling something that is illegal. Well, that's more questionable in that sense. So the output of human capital, by putting people in a better operating system, so M13 is a horrible operating system, having them learning how to build schools, etc., doing useful things is a higher level of operating system. So we're going to use that. Number 5 of that whole Doge pillar, and this is sort of on the other end of the Doge, let's say if all the measures are in place. And that is what Trump and Elon calls the golden age for America. And I think when it's the golden age of America, probably the rest of the world will follow, because it's a good blueprint. Yeah. And that will lead to universal high income. And what does that mean? With the AI that is being accelerated and at our fingertips, right? Becoming an entrepreneur and learning how to create value in that domain is becoming more attractive, because if like Kees, you can start your own enterprise. From your profits, it's only 10% or 15% that you.
But you have your income on the side, the universal high income, so you can.
No, I think what that universal high income will be is less taxation. So So people then still have to...
So higher purchase power.
But people have to work sort of less, but they have more freedom of making decisions for themselves, right? So many people right now in the Netherlands, for example, they have a high income and they can say, well, I want to work part-time, just because they have the luxury of sort of that money. But I think that sort of entrepreneurship becomes more attractive, easier, so more accessible for everybody. And that will lead to a whole bunch of new value creation and opportunities.
That's a very interesting point, because let's turn it around a little. Trump is seen as far right?
Yeah, not by me. But
but in general, by people. And he's cutting opportunities for everyone, and gays, it will be the end of gays and the end of women's rights and stuff like that. But this actually means you're creating equality of opportunity.
Yes.
because you have a guaranteed level of subsistence of income, and it opens up all the possibilities to do what you really want to do. So it's the perfect equality scenario.
Of course, you want to optimize for equality of opportunity, right? And if you're now living in a suburb in Chicago while your area is very unsafe, or you live in the Netherlands in a city where safety is unsure, you cannot walk over on the streets in the middle of the night. That's obvious. That is not the base for a prosperous society, right? So step number one is your society needs to be safe. And role number one of a government is to keep their citizens safe. Yeah, so you need to, for example, here in the Netherlands, there were also periods where they said like small crimes, we're not going to bother hunting down those.
Yeah, so petty crimes won't make the police come out to solve that shit, right? Or,
yeah. But that gives obviously
it's a free pass.
Yeah, a free pass, but also the people that are committing the small crimes eventually will become the ones that are committing the larger crimes. That's just the next step that you then have to do. But what do you think that signals to local entrepreneurs that wants to open a shop? And if everybody get a free pass of just looting their stores,
I'm not opening my shop in there.
No, exactly. So that was what happening, for example, in San Francisco, etc. The prices of the products were getting so out of hand because of entrepreneurs needed to take extremely safety measures to keep their store safe.
And then in the end, the entrepreneur goes to jail because he
needs to defend
the burglar.
That thing. So I think when you have safety level, and then when all these things are true, then entrepreneurship becomes a very attractive job creation, right? So in most of the countries, the small mom and pop shops, so to say, the accumulation of that, they provide for the most jobs together with big corporates, and that is actually what you want, right? So if you get the opportunities to start your own
productive
business,
middle class,
and you can hire your nephew or whoever is in business, and that makes and it's more attractive for you to do that. Then of course, a whole lot of value is being created. Yeah. So long story about where Doge is going to. But in the meanwhile, a lot of existential questions were going to be asked. So the existential questions are not only for the men and women that work in that mine that see suddenly their job disappear after so many years, but it will also means like, what are we going to do in an area where we have less and less tax? Like, why are we paying tax, and what do we want to pay for this tax, and how much can this tax be? So questions maybe we have not been asking ourselves for many years, or were sort of taboo topics, are now suddenly out in the open. And before going into what this mean for Europe, I'm curious what your thoughts on this whole 5-step Doge.
Can you summarize again you've been talking for 30 minutes, so it's a lot of info.
No waste. Yeah, so we're no waste, more money in the pocket eventually of our citizen. So less regulation, so accelerate initiatives that we all want to deploy. Number 3 is lower interest rates on the debt that we already have, or maybe debt free. Maybe we can get rid of the concept that nations need to have a lot of debt. So number 4 is increasing of human capital by putting them in a better operating system. And number 5 is entrepreneurship. Not only entrepreneurship, but also working will become more attractive because you get more in your pocket. So sort of unleashing a value creation in a system where your efforts are being rewarded faster.
So where the payoff will be bigger because you need to pay less taxes and stuff.
Yeah, if you keep more money in your pocket, you know everybody will agree that they want to do more. Definitely, if that is the outcome.
Yeah. Well, I think looking at all the points, and we have some discussions with the whole group about it. Like a lot of the things I actually think are good. So I think there's ways in the government. We've talked about it before. Getting debt down is good. Like I don't know a person who has a lot of debt is actually getting better and better from it normally. At least also when you're over levered. So like in concept, I think those are all good points, very good points. And I'm happy Elon is busy with it because he's just like, he can go to the root cause pretty quickly, uses the right technology, etc. But I think it also would be good to get some thinking around like what can go wrong, you know? So I always try to follow Munger, like always invert. Like how can this go wrong? What can go wrong? And how can we avoid it from derailing, right? And in all of what you've said, like there's tons of things I can say or things I agree and I disagree with. But I think in general it's good to cut the waste again. So I think that's just good. And also I think the findings are it's still low hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. So I think there's actually now a lot, and it amazes me that in Europe we're not happy with what is happening, etc. But I think everyone agrees that we shouldn't spend, same as what you do in your own company, if you have an own company, or same in your family. Household, yeah. You don't want to waste your money on stupid things you don't need, right? So why should we want that for the government? But everyone's screaming now about like, hey, there's a coup, or hey, there's this happening, or hey, that is happening. And I think we should go a little bit deeper. And what I think is good is that Elon shares also on Twitter, like his findings. My background.
What are your ideas on sort of transparency at that scale?
It's really good. I think it's the basic. Like if I give money to, let's say, a friend of mine to purchase stuff, or my girlfriend or my wife or my children.
You want a girlfriend and a wife? Do you want to?
Just saying hypothetically.
You're not so transparent here.
I want to speak to our whole audience. Okay. So they might have a wife and or a girlfriend. I only have a girlfriend, just for the record. No, but if I give money to my girlfriend, for example, to spend something for the household, you challenge each other. And not too much because it's your wife, but like normally you challenge people on spending money, right? And especially when they get in debt. And they do have certain, also in the Netherlands, like you have a certain day where historically people would explain what the government is spending on. It's Prinsjesdag.
Yeah. Yep.
But nowadays it's like more of a formality. And the one thing you see on the news is like either things get more expensive or less expensive.
Yeah, so, and nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
It's September 18th. Let's run through the budget. Yeah, it's higher than last year.
Yeah, is it nobody cares, or is it sort of not made important anymore?
Yeah, nobody bats an eye.
I think it's both actually. So I was sitting in a coffee shop, like just a normal coffee shop in the weekend, drinking coffee. Yeah, I don't do those kind of things. And I was looking outside, and everybody's like just shopping and just like buying stuff and having fun. You know, I don't buy a lot of stuff. Like I don't go shopping or like normally, only when I need things. But people are just happy with continuing their life, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes, and I tweeted it in the weekend as well, like truth is stranger than fiction for many people. So I also think that a lot of people, and I think the majority, just wants to have their life, be at peace, do their thing, and have safety. And I think a lot of them actually don't really want to know everything that's like going on.
As long as they can live their life and buy the stuff that they see on TV and internet and that other people have.
So I don't have problems with that. I think that is fine, right? But now they're sort of, what you see is a couple of things. So if you're going to increase transparency, and therefore also increase responsibility of things you give money to, what does this lead to? That leads to involvement, right? So I think right now, let's say in the old framework, I had the honor to spend a lot of tax here in the Netherlands with my former businesses. So I've
lucky you.
It's fair to say that I've fairly contributed in that model. But I never had a conversation with a government employee to sort of have a feedback loop, right? So see, okay, Mr. Benakker, you have been contributing, and I'm not asking anything here, right? So just let me finish this one. So what Elon tries to establish is a feedback loop. So there comes in like the way we have been governed is like, let them do this in Netherlands is Den Haag or in Washington, whatever.
So it's a black box government in essence, and you need to
do
listen.
what they do. Things are going well, not too much questions about it. But that's actually not a feedback loop. So what is going to be established in the coming years, and on paper, it's a feedback loop with a democracy, but it's not a feedback loop what they're now establishing directly. So for example, Doge, I have a picture on that as well in the links. They opened up very simple X accounts for all the agencies, and people can basically flag or come with recommendations of improvements for that Doge. And I think in business this is a fairly
just go ahead.
Yeah, this one.
This is
yeah. So in business this is a fairly usual practice, right? So you regularly ask feedback from your customers. So how was the product? How was the experience? And based on sort of customer feedback, you try to improve your customer satisfaction. Because everybody know if your customers are not satisfied,
they're not coming back.
And what happens when you're not coming back? You're out of business, right? So that's very simple. So what we need to keep it
up the screen? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So what we're seeing here is that right now, very simple, just by X account, Doge NASA, Doge VA, Doge USDA are opening up all the biggest sort of all the biggest agencies, and just for people to give feedback. So what we're having right now is a sort of real-time feedback loop between the citizens and between the organizations that we have.
This is beautiful to look at, like Doge all over.
Yeah, and it's not to say that NASA doesn't have an X account, that they don't get feedback, but I think it's a very good thing when you have first transparency. Second of all, you try to close the feedback loop as is. So okay, Kees, you have been spending money on this. You know, what are your thoughts on that? That's a very unusual thing because you're used to give feedback on whatever you ordered something on Amazon and you don't like it and you say, well, the material is not good. So, for example, we bought some new monitor arms and the monitor arms are too thin. So you write down your feedback and then based on that, the whole recommendation system just improves over time. So we're going to say that, and there are many government initiatives that have been trying that, but I think never on that scale. So I think that is a big plus, that people actually start feeling involved again when they have the opportunity to just give feedback. Because what you don't want is just people shouting and screaming like, oh, the government. No, you need to be specific. You need to be on point and think what can we improve here. So that is I think a great side effect of opening up sort of that transparency.
Definitely.
And what is the other keyword what you try to establish with transparency? Trust.
In the end, it depends on like what you're showing by being transparent, but in this instance, it might lead to trust. Yeah,
so by opening Pandora's box, so to say, with all the conspiracy theory over the last 50 years, from 9/11 to JFK, just opening up the files. What are the findings? Why are we hiding this, right? If you're hiding things for each other, like Kenny says his girlfriend or his wife, no. That creates sort of lack of trust at some point, right? But if the trust is there and the feedback loop is closed, that's just an enormous win to get more done in the country.
I think it's more nuanced as well. So Donald Trump has said on the first day I get in office, I'll review the JFK files, right?
Yep.
Well, didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Yet.
No, there's a task force working there. So, but it still needs.
And I think there's also like maybe rumors, or I watch a lot of stuff on like History Channel, etc. And there are still secrets. I think also in the Netherlands, like they opened some registers which could show like if there was family in the Second World War who supported the Nazis, right?
Okay,
And they close it down again because they feel it's sensitive.
No,
or
we have that with Rost van Tolling. He lived in the city next to where I grew up, and that house got he was a NSB'er in the war, so he was from the wrong side. He got annoyed, and his house got
exactly. So basically what you're saying is somebody's grandfather or family from 100 years ago
wait till they
supported
die.
the Nazis, and now this guy he didn't even know about it, and they come to his house now because it got revealed that his family was supporting the Nazis back in Second World War, and they come and harass him. So it's also a certain protection that you have, right?
Full transparency is not beneficial always.
Well, that's debatable, right? So
does anybody need to know everything?
No, but I think, and that's also with the JFK files, is that if they would open it up, it would hurt people's names or stuff, And on the other hand, it's but why are you hiding stuff? You're the government.
Apparently
you should protect it, etc. But I also think that within the Netherlands or within certain agencies, they prevent kidnapping of planes, right?
Yep.
But if they would share everything about it, I think people would feel less safe because there's a lot of stuff going on.
Of course,
so,
you cannot.
So on the one hand, I think it's totally good, and on the other hand, it can be dangerous.
It's a trade-off.
And,
definitely a trade-off.
And I think Zuckerberg said it very well on the podcast with Joe Rogan. He said some things seem like common sense or reasonable, but might be very nuanced. And he also gave an example that why it's so difficult on a platform to make sure that you do no harm. Yeah. So he explained in a public space in America, you cannot shout in a room which is full of people, fire, as a joke or whatever. It's you can get a penalty or can go to jail, whatever. But he said what's the equivalent of doing that online? And it's not black and white, so it's gray. So that's also an area where he said, how are you going to implement those stuff? And I think the same applies to being transparent. On the one hand, it's very good. And some people might not get shared where we say, why didn't you do it? But I'm positively biased, so to speak, and optimistic. So I think a lot of the people who made mistakes or who maybe cover up stuff don't do that always with the bad intentions. So...
No, those points are, of course, so for example, foreign relations can be involved and all that. But if you keep it, you can always sort of, there's always levels on transparency that you can have. So you can say, well, let's say your name is in the document, but your name is not relevant for the whole story, right? Then you can leave your name out. So there are levels that's also with crimes, right? So in the newspaper, they don't have the full name of a person in a crime. So they only use the one part of the name. So there are already codes of conduct, so to say, for those kind of behavior. So you don't ruin somebody's life that doesn't deserve their life to be ruined. But you need to have accurate information on what actually happened that day, if it's something that goes on a level, and especially, let's say, in day-to-day life, where are you spending your money towards? How is it being used? That is now something that is totally intransparent, and you want to have that. So it's not all 9/11s and crazy things, also day-to-day things. Sure. Before we go ahead, maybe we can ask Florian if he has some thoughts on that.
Well, first things first. Florian, where is he?
Florian, he's binge drinking with his friends, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's on a drinking holiday. He has 3 or 4 guy friends.
Do you also think he has an alcoholic problem, or?
I think so. Yeah.
Nah, sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah. So I went to the bar with him one time. He drinks so quickly.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Beer after beer. He drinks wine in between.
He drinks me under the table.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
What does he have to say?
And then I tweeted, have many millions between Facebook and Twitter. It's great. It's like owning a newspaper without the losses. It's incredible.
It's like owning a newspaper without the lawsuits.
Yeah. So I think to wrap up this whole Doge thing, it is a kind of wild times, right?
It's
because
cowboy, yeah.
both Donald and Elon are very unconventional people. They don't care too much about the form of things, but therefore it was great for you that you kicked off with the reality of goodness. We have been both following Elon and Donald for a longer period of time, so we do believe that sort of they're standing on the side of the reality of goodness instead of that whole perception of it.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, definitely.
On the other hand, like for a lot of people, perception is reality. So I think a little bit of perception there would be, or creating the perception that he's also doing good.
You're not going to get this from Elon
good.
in the next 20 years. I know.
Sorry?
You're not going to get this from Elon in the next 20 years, but...
Well, you never know.
You never know.
Next week we'll do a philosophical episode about
I said,
perception.
and I remember it, but Damian's recollection of things is even worse than mine. But I said I wouldn't be surprised if Elon does something political in like a couple of years. And he was like, no, he's never going to do it, etc. And here we are. I think only two years later.
Age well, Damian.
So now what's going on in the meanwhile in Europe? Right, because while Doge is sort of getting the majority of the votes in the people in the US,
yeah,
I think the latest approval rates of Trump was around 80%.
Yeah, it was quite high.
Insane.
Yeah, very very high. I am worried what will happen in Europe.
Yeah, let's discuss that on the next week because
one more slide to wrap this up is the tweet of Viktor Orban.
The ripple effect, you mean?
Yeah, no, not ripple effect, but Viktor Orban is the prime minister of Hungary.
You mean this tweet?
Yeah.
We put it on the big screen.
Yeah. So Viktor Orban, why do you think this is relevant? Well, I will explain. He's the prime minister of Hungary, and Viktor Orban is being painted here in the media for a very long time as super right wing politician and crazy lunatic. So right now, when I hear that right wing crazy lunatic, for me it's a signal like, okay, now I'm going to watch interviews of this person because probably this guy is telling some stuff that
people don't like.
That people don't like. So he had a very long interview with Tucker Carlson.
But before you continue, shall I, for the listeners that cannot see the tweet?
Yeah, show them
because the content of the tweet might be important.
Yeah, but I first paint some background. So
go ahead.
And he has been quite successful in running Hungary, and he's the longest sitting prime minister within Europe. So he's been seeing quite a lot. He's also on the border of Russia, of course, with Hungary.
Do you have any insights on like what he improved in Hungary as well, like any numbers or?
Yeah. So trade went up massively, and they had a lot of bilateral deals, etc., going on. Okay. But he was also the one that raised his finger in the very beginning as the only one in the European Union of let's say gents this war in Ukraine. Like Russia is very strict on what they want and what they don't want. So he had a very nuanced view on that. Yeah. And at that moment, he became a sort of persona non grata, not like person anymore within that whole constellation, because he was speaking against sort of that central narrative, what they want to achieve. Can you pull up the tweet again?
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to look up some achievements from Victor.
Yeah. So, but the people are, let's say, very, very happy with what he's been doing. But what we have seen, what he warns us for, and I think this is a very, very serious warning. Our fears has come true. The globalist liberal Soros NGO network is fleeing to Brussels. After President Trump dealt a huge blow to their activities in the US, now 63 of them are asking Brussels for money under the guise of various human rights projects. Not going to happen. We will not let them find a safe haven in Europe. The US aid files expose the dark practices of the globalist network. We will not bait for this again. So how are we seeing this in real time? I think at this moment there's a war being sold to Europe with Zelensky basically seeing his funds dried up. And the irony, of course, is that one of the main labels that Elon gets is like rich billionaire being involved in politics. While for the causes that people sort of agree on that side, there are huge amounts of money being pushed into that. So the Democratic Party was the largest funded party during the last elections, and billionaires like George Soros, but also Bill Gates played a huge role in that.
Both US and Europe.
Yeah, and what George Soros has been creating is a whole network of activist NGOs that creates unrest in societies. So if you have been to the US in the last 4 years, the civilization was extremely polarized, created by this kind of activist group being funded by taxpayer money, but also the George Soros money. So the concern that Viktor Orban is highlighting here is like, okay, they basically have seen, okay, we lost our fight here in the US. Yeah. We get defunded. People are seen through this. And now that is going to be heavily pushed and with billions of dollars behind it in Europe. So what I predict is that the levels of propaganda here in Europe will
even be worse.
Yeah. So they will, in the coming months, coming months or year, they will reach their all-time high if we not take measures against that. So. Yeah, that is also the ripple effect of Doge, making everything transparent in the US. But
the funny thing about it all is like we're seeing and we're hearing a lot of the Matrix fighting back, as we discussed it in the last week's episode. But the approvals for Trump and Doge and Elon Musk are through the roof.
Yep.
So apparently we're only getting the negative outcries by the sitting elite and by the media, which is funded by, of course, Soros money, a lot of it as well. So if they continue and they make some good strides, I don't think we're going to see that level for, I think, an additional 2 years, that level of propaganda. It might be quicker than you think, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. I hope so too, but I'm quite concerned that we cannot sort of... we're as Europe, we're not unified enough to make that happen, because it's all countries basically for themselves. And
we're even worse than the United States, because the United States has a common language and a relatively recent shared history, while Europe has different cultures, different languages. It's a way different history,
different structures, and all that. So let's see how that evolves. But let's hope we can be a bit more positive on Europe in
let's hope so
the
too.
coming episodes. So.
Well, I read some books about Soros actually too.
Yeah,
good ones,
very good ones. But they're about trading and investing. So he's one of the most successful investors.
Yeah,
I don't know about his funding or stuff, like nothing.
Investor went politician.
Yeah, so he had a hedge fund. Which he managed, I think it's one of the most successful ever. So he's a good trader. But I don't know about this stuff, so need to dig in.
Yeah. So basically, his model is funding local judges that have where he say you can make the law, but if the laws are not enforced, the laws needs to be enforced by the judges. So if I can influence the judges, then I don't care who creates the law in that specific country, and funding a whole bunch of NGOs with sort of social activities that causes unrest in societies. So he's causing unrest on the one part and speculate on the outcomes of those social unrest on the other part.
Smart.
So he
but ethical.
He understands sort of arbitrage like no other, right? So where he sees a discrepancy with this arbitrage, he doubles down and make that bet. So in the past, he has been doubling down on the British pound. It was one of his most successful trades in the past. But this is also an interesting one, because you know that as well, is media manipulation is a big strategy of short sellers as well, right? So you see that more and more.
Yeah, it's not only short, also long.
long, but you basically a good example was that with the Tesla stock that there was some fake news about China factories, etc., coming out, and then immediately the stock dipped, and Elon needed to tweet again, and it went up again. But in that glitch, of let's say a couple of hours,
you can make a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, they earn money. I actually they have the SEC Doge, right?
Yeah.
So the SEC is the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Doge, right?
It oversees the stock market. Yeah, but so I actually follow a guy which is called James Boultard. That's his AKA.
But dude, like that list that list of accounts to follow.
Yeah, well, they're good, but the James Boultard is somebody else. So he actually lists like unusual option flows. Mm-hmm. So like he literally shows stuff where people place very high leverage bets on options, so call options or put options, and then like suddenly next day like some report comes out or like and he always also in his so he makes newsletters and he has built a tool. It's quite nice. I use it sometimes. But he's like always like the SEC is sleeping at the wheel. How can this be? You know. Yeah. So yeah. But you see like crazy stuff, like people like betting hundreds of millions of dollars on a small tiny company, and then next day they're like, we're going bankrupt, or it's
probably Nancy Pelosi who was behind
Nancy Pelosi trackers is something that is still not being fully investigated, only by sort of conspiracy theorist people. Is during 9/11. In that week before those two airplanes hit the World Trade Center, people shorted airplane companies and insurance companies.
Yeah, that's also...
How is that? You know, it's apparently somebody that...
If we open that rabbit hole, then we're going to be here for another 5 hours.
It's never sort of fully investigated there. So that is... obviously a weird thing, and that leaves room for
and a lot more people are doubting it in the open. Yeah. But not diving into that, what about Grok 3, guys? We have been talking almost an hour or more about Doge, but did we watch Grok 3?
Yeah, I watched it. You guys as well?
Did you stay up for it? Did you wake up for it?
No, I saw it. So actually on the road here and this morning to work, I watched the video.
Okay, you too?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your biggest takeaway or like the biggest moment in it? For me, it was this one quote. Very soon, there will be no more benchmarks left.
What do we mean by that?
Well, they're testing the capabilities of the language model, like how it holds up to the rest. So they held a competition. And then to see how you hold up against the competition, you have like benchmarks. So in the computer industry, it's like clock speed and stuff like that. So it's a couple KPIs.
How it does in certain tests and
exactly.
That kind of stuff.
And the developers, they like in the beginning it was very funny to see like 4 dudes sitting there, and then Elon said, "You don't see me that often. Usually I come in, but I don't do it that much." But what was your biggest takeaway, Kenny, from Grok?
So basically what you're saying is like there are no benchmark left, so they're so much better than the rest of the competition. Is that what you say? Or?
Definitely. And also some benchmarks, the benchmarks right now are made by people. Mm-hmm. And at some point, when you get from artificial intelligence to artificial superintelligence to artificial general and then superintelligence, then the AI becomes way better. So a human becomes incapable of setting the benchmarks or coming up with the benchmarks. Yeah. At least that's how I took it.
Well, I get, if I may so, I have Definitely. 2 takeaways. So I also saw the cloud, so it's also AI. Yeah. I saw cloud launching and also the new ChatGPT. Have you seen it as well from OpenAI?
The super paid version of €200 or
well, no, so it's part of that, but it's that they actually perform tasks on your computer. So what you can do?
No, I haven't seen it. No.
It's actually super nice. So there and I use Perplexity myself quite a lot, which is run based on multiple models. So I see like quite a spectrum just for my work. I think it's good to know what's happening. But if you look at the last OpenAI task, what you can do there is you can just say on the computer, do XYZ, like open all my mails and answer all the sales calls. Yep. And it just does it. It's insane. And that's OpenAI. So, and then the sad part, so that's my takeaway, it will not be available in Europe for at least the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and
It's man.
and why is that?
Well, yeah, regulation, but the problem is really like I'm a like I like those new things, you know, but also FSD.
Early adopter.
If we want to try FSD, we have to go to the US. We're basically living in the past here, so it's very sad. Yeah. So that's the first takeaway.
This one absolutely make no
sense.
FSD. I can sort of
You might kill someone with the car in an accident, but
okay, but still, like we're like. I think 2 years behind on the US.
And with that, like
crazy.
there's one comment to be made because a student driver that just passes his exam is a reckless driver, especially when it's a dude in his 18, 19s, maybe 20s. He's gonna drink. He's gonna show off. He's gonna have.
It's worse because I think the version I have now driving on my FSD
it's way worse.
Is way more dangerous.
It's super. It has become so much more dangerous since legislation started. So don't get me started on this one because then it's going to be 6 hours.
Can you open up the snippets of that interview? There's one link of that snippets of the interview because
definitely
I think it's very groundbreaking what Grok AI Grok number 3 is going to do, version 3.
Which one is it? Mario Naval's one, or
yeah, I think so.
Well, so the next takeaway for me was that it looks more complex in its reasoning. So you can see it reasoning, and they hide a bit of that reasoning. But Perplexity already did that based on the DeepSeek model.
Is it this one, Damien?
Yeah. If you
okay.
Can,
yes. So this is the full video. We're seeing a tweet from Mario Naval, where he's giving out the time codes, the timestamps for the video and the Q&A.
But the reasoning is amazing.
Can you make it a large screen? Because then it sort of summarizes the capabilities.
Definitely, but like what time span are you looking for? Is it...
No, just
this first part of the
first part, yes.
Yeah. So exactly. This till 120?
Yeah, no, not a part, but just...
can you show it bigger on the screen?
Yeah.
For you mean?
Yeah, because it then... yes, exactly. So...
People were seeing this, by the way.
It gives a little bit of picture of what that interview is about. So results of physics problems, results of game creation. As you know, Elon coincidentally launched a gaming company today as well, because he's frustrated by sort of games not being great anymore.
Yeah, and woke being too woke, right?
Yeah,
but he has a point because I don't like the game anymore. And I used to love gaming back in the day.
Yeah, so apparently they had amazing results by just let the AI create those video games, because you know those AI guys are of course all gamers, so they want to create something like that. So that's what you highlighted as well.
12 creating a new game.
Yeah, so solving physics problems. So the whole Grok 3 had a whole new theory on gravity, which surprised everyone and made everybody think like, I'm not a physician, but Elon shared the Grok findings basically on gravity, which is like a mind-blowing concept if we can start seeing a more intelligent approach than humans already, solving physics problems that humans cannot solve. So it can now create video games faster than humans can do that. It can solve certain physics problem that humans have been wrap around their head, but it can also reason back to humans. So Grok 3, as far as I understand it from the highlights in that interview and the highlights that Elon gave it, got already superhuman reasoning and can be used as sort of partner to start teaching you about very, very, very complex things.
So could be, but I think the biggest thing that it actually does. So I'm not sure about like those kind of things, but the reasoning was already there with Perplexity. So I have my doubts on. So I've seen the graphs and they're the most smart and blah blah. And I know
these graphs. You mean the
exactly
like the benchmarks.
Yeah, but
what we're talking about.
So can you go back once? So they say Gemini 2.0.
Yeah, and to clarify this for the listeners, what they did is they made a chatbot arena, but they named it chocolate, hot chocolate, as Elon tried to call it. But it was a blind test, so nobody was biased in testing out the language models, and this was the outcome of that blind test.
Yeah, but Gemini, like using it in daily, I think Gemini is the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's then because they also mentioned they're already working on the next version, like we have seen with FSD, and the next version will have even more, like a 15x compute, and I think Grok 3 is now maybe it's not. We need more proof points, right? So. But if we take Elon's word for it, that is the best AI in the world. It's actually developed in so short period of time.
Yeah, only 16 months or 18 months.
Yeah. So I'm quite sure that xAI will be groundbreaking in the coming years in the things they develop. And for me, it's not a matter of when, not a matter of if, but a matter of when.
Definitely.
My prediction will this year AI will solve very difficult physics problems that humans have been bumping their head to.
Sure, but
that's going to happen. But that's revolutionary if you think about it.
Yeah, but okay, could be.
But you don't have access to it, Kenny.
No, not at all. I'm far from it. Like I'm far from it. But I do like basic, simple stuff for like M&A, so for mergers and acquisitions. And I do it with Perplexity, ChatGPT. So I always try like what's the most appropriate for this task. But like even very simple stuff, they cannot already do. So it's doing those amazing tests, etc. And it might be very smart in some areas, but you want to have it being useful, right? And I think there's quite a step to make.
That ChatGPT had, because I've been trying Grok as well for work, but...
Very simple. So if I would take Mr. Green, right? I would say Mr. Green wants to sell more products. Maybe wants to do partnerships. Find me companies that can make a partnership. It will say, it can maybe find a partnership with Volkswagen things that don't make sense. Or it will say a partnership with Tesla.
Yeah. What I notice is that I really need to feed it with my own thoughts. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I just talk to ChatGPT for like not longer than 10 minutes, because then it fucks up working.
No swearing, we agree.
Yeah, F that shit. But for instance, for some of my tweets, I ask him, find this handle at K-Roelandschap. Try to learn as much as you can, replicate some tweets so I have proof that you know how I write. And then I ask him questions. So it's becoming more and more of a conversation, but you need to steer and guide it. But if you ask him these basic questions like, what's a good partnership deal for Mr. Green? It's going to come up with the most dumbest shit ever. And then you need because this happened then and this. So you need to give it some context.
Yeah, but even if I give it sometimes some context, it cannot do simple stuff.
No,
it can do it. So if I would give it to somebody who's on middle school or whatever, or in high school, they would do the same, maybe at that level task. But if I want to have somebody who knows M&A, etc., it just doesn't.
Do you get angry at ChatGPT sometimes when you or do you treat him or her nicely?
No, I don't get angry.
No, I sometimes do, because I ask him, rewrite it and don't change a thing, but I only want emoticons in there or references to articles, and then I see it changing. It's like, I didn't ask you this. Do it again. Do it again.
Don't argue with the AI case.
It's going to get back to you.
It's going to cost me dear. Yeah,
it's going to come back like a boomerang.
Just kidding. So. Yeah, well, I'm looking. I've not been. I cannot use Grok 3, unfortunately, because we're in Europe.
I think even if we would have access, you wouldn't be able to use it. I've seen this guy pay with his phone. It's it takes an hour. He doesn't know how it works.
Yeah, maybe. But I've been playing around with
to put a square in the triangle
with some functions left or right. But I'm more looking to it as a lens, like how fast can Elon innovate with his companies? Because that is one of the main traits that Elon has, and we are going to see it in Doge as well. That is companies are always outworking, outpacing, and out-innovating basically the competition that we
Is this
that we see.
Damien trying to use ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Or Grok 3?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. The guy was the first with like Facebook ads and that kind of stuff,
And this is
and
again-
Bitcoin, etc. But
This is again from that movie Idiocracy, so you do need to give it a watch.
He's more handsome than I am, so
for sure, and I think also smarter. But
yeah. So a lot of things discussed, but of course a lot of Tesla stuff this week as well. First, maybe some Q1 rumors that Q1 would not be so great because of the Model I phasing out and the new Model I coming in.
Yeah, and a lot of news that
Do you have ideas on that, Kenny?
well, so production starts for the Model Y. I think
It
right
started today.
about now. Yeah.
In China.
Yeah, in China, I think in Berlin they are also already starting up. So they did have some of the first
Yeah, that
production
was
vehicles already in Jan.
1 or 2 weeks ago, and we see them being transported to stores and stuff like that, but like actual mass production.
I've seen one today on the roads.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Driving
yes.
or on the truck?
No, driving.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. What color?
In gray, dark gray, something like
Yes,
that.
You liked it?
This is the same color
It's
as I have.
it's very big. I was surprised. I'm always surprised by the size of the Model
It's
I.
American cars.
It's a big car, but there's really it feels like sort of a crossroads. So it was driving towards me, and I could drive. And I was walking my dog with Isabel, and I was screaming like, "Oh, look!" the new Model I.
She doesn't have a
She has no clue.
It's like, who's this nuthead?
Yeah, we still know that. So so it came driving towards me. So I thought, wow, that's the new Model Y. And then he drove past me because I live very close to the Tesla Service Center, right? So
It's
probably
around the corner, yeah.
It's around
It's
the
a
corner.
test
here.
drive, probably.
That can be. But it looks... I have not been seeing it in person like you guys.
Yeah, I've
we've
seen
seen
it
it,
twice. I made a video about it.
Yeah. But it
it's
looked very futuristic. So it really feels like sort of your future driving towards you.
super high build quality.
And it is just I don't know, it just stands out more. So maybe it's because we especially
like a sore thumb or like something
no
that's nice?
like
Okay.
something nice. But I think especially in the Netherlands we have the highest density of Teslas on the road. Of maybe Norway is higher.
That's pretty-
but it's very dense here.
But
Yeah,
EVs are
definitely.
very high. I actually did a deep dive this week, and last year I
How
think
deep? Deep.
very deep.
So deep?
Deep seek. Deep seek. No, but I think our penetration in good word choose is around 36-38%
we have
of
a
new
deep-
vehicles being EVs.
We have a deep penetration of EVs in the Netherlands. Okay, good. Thanks,
who,
Kenny.
who am I sitting here with, man?
Yeah. So now
No, but it's pretty high because in Germany it's
It
only
rubs
like
off on you, man.
it's only like 13.5%. So
yeah,
I can see
so
what
we're
you
very
guys
used to,
are short in, but
to
yeah.
Teslas on the road, but this Tesla stands out very much. So
yeah. I liked it. So the backlight, I was not sure, but in real life it looks amazing.
Yeah, I was unsure as well. But I'm dying to see it like in the nighttime, how it reflects that puddle of light on the ground actually.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but it looks already good on the light.
Yeah. And watch my video on YouTube, Mr. Green's YouTube. It's a 6-7 minutes video.
but back to Q1 production numbers. Any thoughts there?
yeah.
Because I think it makes sense that we are going to see a hit in sort of car sales.
Sure.
So
Not necessarily a hit, but slowing down maybe a little bit.
Yes and no. So in China, which is the biggest market for Tesla, they've already sold 200,000 cars this year.
But sorry to interrupt, but
No, you never do that. So
no, but
we have a new name for you, Kees.
Mr. Interruption.
No. How's that interviewer called again? That interrupts all the time.
okay, just think about it.
That it drops all the time.
Yeah.
Don Lemon.
No.
Continue.
We have in the first 5 days, first 16 days, it was 130,000 orders, right? And now 200,000, and that's 5 weeks after.
Yeah, but it's a little bit skewed, right? Because people were waiting for the Model Y, which are now being sold. So I think they pulled ahead some of the demand there. So hopefully this year will be around 600 to 700. But let's
Find
see.
the name?
Piers Morgan.
Case Morgan.
You hate that guy, right?
I really don't like his interview style. It's,
But anyway, so
No, let me talk. No.
for Q1, I think it's a little bit of a nothing burger. Like if you look at the valuation of Tesla, it's more than $1 trillion. So it's not about the cars anymore.
Yeah.
It's really about FSD
It's FSD and
and
AI.
humanoids. That's the only focus.
yeah, but I do think it can cause some turmoil. Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see how that maybe gives some opportunities for some people that want to get in. Not giving advice here, but I'm curious how, because I think that Model Y is really, really awesome, right? And for me, it's the same car, but also totally not the same. It's like a total new car.
Yeah, it looks good.
It got a new face.
Interior.
Because in the past, there was a clear distinction between S and X.
Yeah.
Even though they share the same platform. But Model 3 and Model Y was just the beefed up, juiced up Model 3. It was not unique at all. It was a little bit higher, thicker, and more spacious. Now it has a new front. It is lacking a Tesla logo. So that's
At the front, yeah.
At the front. And in the back, you have it written out just as in the new Model 3. In China, however, they do have the Tesla logo.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, in China
They care
have
more
the
about brand.
yeah, and in China, most of the cars look like this with those light strips. So to
Distinguish. Yeah, okay.
it might be, but that's a funny discrepancy.
Because
actually.
I wasn't sure. I saw it with and without. And then I was like,
Yeah,
what's
but
happening?
it's over here. It will be without.
Okay.
But it's a completely new car actually, and I really like what they did with this design.
So
it's
I'm
more of a car.
Hoping is not the right word, but what I think is going to happen is one, it's overhaul of the car. So the aesthetics of the car and the interior of the car are obviously an improvement, and more people will be drawn into it. Also because it's something new, right? So people want to trade in their old ones, etc. Second one is they've learned how to make their production lines more efficient, because they learned that with the Cybercab and the new unboxing methods, etc. So and that probably will lead to a cost efficiency on producing those cars. So
And
it will be,
unsure if they are really doing that unboxed method for the Model Y. Not yet, right?
no, but we can say at least that they have been learning from manufacturing processes.
They've become
etc.
better. Yeah.
So for sure, they will have improvements on that. And we talked about the cars driving themselves to the lot. So it's a continuously
Iterating, and improving.
yeah, exactly. So I think the demand will increase. The cost price or the margins will, in the first phase, we will see a increase because
the investments and
they sell it for a higher price.
Yeah.
So I think it's on both sides very good news for Tesla.
Definitely.
And then if there's nothing else on the Model Y, there is actually an announcement this week by Apple, I think it is. So Apple wants to also do more with AI,
it's
etc.
going to come tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and there are rumors about them getting involved with humanoids as well.
They got back on X, and then Elon reposted a post by Apple, right? That was the kickstart
Well,
of this.
I think it's from Tim Cook.
Yeah.
But any thoughts from your end on like speculation what it might be, or
a bigger teaser than this is okay. I don't know, but let's hope it's Apple CarPlay.
I was always wondering why is Apple not venturing into this humanoid thing? Because from a production and capability standpoint, Apple should be a logical.
Well, I think good to know is that the production of the phones is not done by themselves.
Yeah,
as far as I
it's
know.
okay, but at least
they only design.
At least they have partners that can that have the capabilities.
Yeah,
and they tried the autonomous car for 10-15 years.
Let's say the VP of Apple manufacturing knows a thing or two about manufacturing stuff,
100%,
right?
Yeah.
So I was surprised that they were not entering this field. Apple is always very good in keeping their cards on the chest anyway. So not a lot of people know that Apple has been working on the car project as well. A running joke within Tesla was always that Apple is the graveyard for Tesla engineers. So Apple was always hiring engineers from Tesla in the hope to get the same results as Tesla. But apparently only sort of the mediocre engineers wanted to go to Apple because they felt very compelled to work for the leader in that industry that is Tesla.
Yeah.
So Apple spent billions and billions, and we never know what these companies are up to in terms of R&D, right? We even don't know that with Tesla what their R&D projects are. Are they working on the VTOL? Are they working on whatever? So
Sure.
You get some tidbits, but you never know like the full picture.
We need Doge, transparency.
Yeah, but also Apple spends so much money in R&D and trying to get things done. But they just like Tesla, they only want to enter a field where they feel confident that they can the absolute number one player in that field. But now, so I hope that Apple will also join the Humanoid because I think it's great for the industry.
As long as they don't use their AI.
Yeah, but what you have seen right now on AI, it's quite silent with Apple, right? So they had Apple AI what they announced
and the new OS.
and in the new OS, but it's already sort of silent around that, but also very silent around their glasses. Nobody talks about them anymore. And that also those glasses were sort of industry changing. So expecting from Apple something that is groundbreaking and sets a whole new sort of industry standard. We have not seen that happening for the last sort of
since Steve Jobs
sort of
not there,
years.
right?
So it's small improvements.
Yeah, and I think their products are amazing, right? I use their phone, I use their laptop, etc. So I'm not pitching on
Apple fanboy.
But Mr. Weave, the new Mr. Weave.
Yeah, so where I'm going
Where
to
are we
here
going to?
is I don't expect anything groundbreaking from Apple. That's just not my. That's not how I look at them. I think they're excellent in what they do, and they're excellent in milking that out, and having an enormously profitable company with all sorts of things within that ecosystem coming better. But those are all incremental things and not sort of groundbreaking new.
Then, listening
new
to all
terrains.
of this, I do think then that there's a high probability of introduction of Apple CarPlay into Tesla because that is something that a lot of people are missing and actively use. Just plugging in the car and have Apple
what are they
CarPlay.
missing?
Good question, because I don't miss it. But
And Grok 3 in the Teslas.
yeah, but if it's as long as it's not available in Europe, we're gonna have to wait on that. But that would be the perfect love child. Grok in the Tesla.
I think that this will happen this year.
So I think so as well. Grok's going to be that's just a logical step. But as far as I know, Elon always has built his own ecosystem. Maybe only with like Google. Google Maps is included in your car. So I don't expect anything, to be honest. So I think it's just speculation. I think there's just going to be a normal Apple thing being announced, but I've also been following Chris Camillo, as you all know, and he had a big podcast over the weekend, like a very investor-like-minded podcast. But he actually said that they're pretty big on humanoids nowadays. So
Apple.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that basically makes everyone now big in humanoids. It's like, I think Meta has announced
Microsoft.
it. Yeah. Microsoft, Tesla,
it's
Apple.
It's going to be one sexy humanoid.
Amazon already as well. Yeah, I think they see how big the market potential is.
Yeah.
So,
and
then partnering up with Tesla. Boom.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. The only thing I think would be good for Tesla, because like here there's an Apple laptop. We both also have Apple Book, I don't know what, but anyways, there's a lot of
Apple
people
phones.
who use Apple phones, So I think from a trustworthy standpoint, and a humanoid must be trusted by its users because it's very close.
So the sentiment towards Apple is better than...
Well, I think if they would do something that it would integrate more easy with your phone and stuff,
definitely
makes a lot of sense. But that's the only thing that I think would be good.
Let's say I never expect groundbreaking stuff from Apple at this point,
No.
but it can be, but let's see how that goes. Back to the robot on wheels. Is there any news on the Cybercab this week, Case?
Post show. No, in the Robotaxi app, in the Tesla app, there appeared some lines of code that you will be able to rate the cleanliness of the vehicle after a ride and stuff like that. So that are again signs that Robotaxi rides are really going to happen soon, because otherwise you won't release it or open that up to the public.
Because the release will be in June, right, in Austin?
Yeah, Robotaxi rides Austin.
So we expect like sort of every week something small being presented to us.
Yeah, and
if
you want to follow someone very interesting in this space, is the account SETI Park, so SETI _park.
Yep.
He releases a lot of patents. So he also released a patent that at first seemed insignificant. And Larry Goldberg and Herbert, they discussed it and actually thought, oh, it's not that important. But later, like I think a week or 2 weeks after that patent got out, Larry decided to do a deep dive, and there's a lot of hidden gems in there. So
so you share some?
Yeah, well, I do want to keep that for our deep dive, because it's going to be lengthy, and I would love to have some more preparation to say the right things, and not make mistakes.
What are the highlights then?
The highlights is like the Tesla cars will be open to everyone. So it's not like you need to buy one to have one, but Uber, any service in the future will be able to tap into a humanoid or to a Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
So you can think of the possibilities are endless. But to go into details, I would love to do that with Søren Basher and Florian as well in 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, so we have a couple of exciting people we're going to meet over the summer in the next few weeks, right? So Søren's going to be here.
Yeah.
Larry, I think, is going to be here.
Yeah.
Tesla Boomer Mama, we have Alexander Mears.
Like here in the studio, or?
Well, I don't think they're all in the studio. Some of them will be online.
No physical. I think all will be online.
Maybe Alexandra we're going to meet somewhere.
Yeah,
close,
we need to meet her then if we drive to her. But Jeff, it's going to be very cool, and we are going to be releasing dates for when those podcasts are going to be aired.
Awesome.
Let's wrap it up. I think this has become the longest episode we have ever recorded in one take. Congratulations, we did it.
Without Mr. Weave.
Yeah.
Some last words from Mr. Weave?
Yeah.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Aren't those good words?
Couldn't have been better.
And Europe, let's say. Let's stay positive and...
make the world great again.
Exactly. Okay,
cool.
thanks, gents.
Thanks, gents. Cheers.
Bye-bye.